Good morning. So I got Buddy with me here today. This is the worst crop that we have in 2021. From my two other videos of the crop tours, we kind of knew this was going to happen. This is the farthest west field that we have, and might even be the farthest south. I'm not sure on that. It would be within half a mile anyways. But it missed all the rain, and it really shows. So I'm up here on a knoll, and you can see there's just nothing but weeds. So this was seeded to peas and canola, and that's the swath it just left up here on the hill, which is volunteer barley. So now why this happens, so we did spray this. We sprayed this with Odyssey as well. Odyssey is actually a pretty good chemical. There's I think that's the one that has residue problems in the piece. I'm not sure. It's either that or maybe Pursuit. I don't know. There's so many chemicals. But it's not widely used up here. But because we seed Clearfield canola with the peas, you can spray it on both and it won't kill. So this is what you're seeing. So this is an area where I haven't swathed yet. And as you can see, nothing came. The peas that did come, they're whatever. That's the length of my finger. And I mean, you're not going to get those. And unfortunately, the peas are in there. Would be good if you could get them, but it's just not possible. Not possible to get them. The canola that grew, it grew very sparse. So this part of the field, we're just making the motions. I only got to get to the trees and then we're done. But as you can see, there's absolutely nothing up here on this hill. Down at the bottom and in between those trees, it's actually quite good. And when I get down there, I'll film that too, because you see, this is the biggest problem with weed control, is when the crop doesn't grow. So even if you don't spray at all, if you were to work the land and seed it and have the crop come up and be ultra competitive to whatever else is growing, you wouldn't end up with weed infestation like this. But when nothing comes, then the weeds just have a free-for-all, and you really can't spray that out. I mean, you'd come out here with your sprayer and you'd spray it, and then within 7 days it would all die, and within 4 or 5 days after that, the new green weeds would be coming up. So you'd be out here just spraying and spraying and spraying. The cheapest chemical, I guess, for that would be glyphosate Roundup, which is about $7 an acre. If you try to use other burn down stuff or residual stuff, it just goes up and up and up. So every time you're doing that, you're going backwards. So the best for here actually would have been to just bring the disc out. We should have just, I mean, had I known it was this bad, the only thing is you can't get up to this hill without, the road is way over there. So we didn't know it was quite this bad, because there is nothing here. So there's no point in swathing it. There's no point in combining it. We may as well have just brought the disc out. We could have worked up a bunch of this field and just left the good part. But anyways, we'll hop back in the swather. Once we get down to the good side, I'll pop out and show you the difference. Good afternoon. So I did say I would stop down here when I got to where the crop was better. I guess I just didn't realize that the crop wasn't going to get better. So all the way up there on that hill, that's where it was just terrible. Down here, it's no better. Well, I shouldn't say it's no better, it's slightly better. But again, this is I guess a little better view of kind of what the crop was supposed to be. So we were supposed to have a lot of peas and then a little bit of canola just to hold it up. Now, in a year like this, despite the crop being so terrible, maybe it was a good idea again, because when you look in between where I swathed, you don't see a whole bunch of missed peas. Here's one that was laying flat, but a lot of them were actually up in the canola. So on a year where the peas don't grow that well, they stay short, and so on and so forth, I guess maybe it's the best way to show and explain why we started to do that, because there's very little, there's one over here, but there's very little. So while the crop itself is a very bad crop, at least we were basically able to salvage, I would say 90%. This is what I would consider will be the best pea and canola crop that we have. And you can basically tell that by looking out there. The ones I just swathed, when we looked out on them, there was just wild oats and thistle and all sorts of stuff. This one, there's a bit of wild oats out there, but not too bad. This quarter of land had a last fall we put, it's called Edge or Treflan or Avidex. Those are 3 different kinds. But it's a liquid, you spray it on with your sprayer and then you work it into the soil, and it takes care of the wild oats for up to 2 years after that. These quarters had such a bad wild oat infestation that I'm not even surprised there is still some wild oats in there. But it's certainly not solid like the other 2 quarters we just swathed were. So I'm going to get the GPS set here, and we're going to take off. So I can't figure out where to set my tripod up in here, and it's actually not that interesting if you just let it sit anyways, that I find. So normally I wouldn't be holding my phone while I'm doing the outside rounds, but as you can see, in a year like a drought, or even a really wet year, in a really wet year, the tree line will shed the water into the field, and you'll end up with what you got here, a dead spot. But in a dry year, the trees will suck up all the moisture for as far out as they can reach, so you'll end up also with a dead spot. So I said this in another video when I was doing a crop check. It is very inefficient to just drive in an approach and walk 5 feet into your field and see, you won't be able to gauge anything. I get kind of envious watching some of the corn guys down in the States, because just right off the road, and maybe it's all their crops, the corn is already 8 feet tall. Up in our area, and because we don't grow corn, but so the crops that we do grow, they are very susceptible to the stress that is put on them by growing close to a tree line. Every once in a while, when you're seeding or anhydrous or swathing or whatever, you're gonna fetch up something either on your shank or your lifter or your finger, and you never know what it is. So let's go have a look at what that is. What is this? That is a casing protector from a drilling rig. So I was just thinking when I was fishing that casing protector out of that lifter, there are a couple more reasons too that we grow the peas and canola above just keeping the peas up off the ground. When you go to swath the canola, and the last 5 years up here have been kind of nightmares in the fall. We've had a tremendous amount of rain. If you swath a 35-foot swath of just peas, and it gets rained on a lot, it will just get slimy and gross. Because what happens is you swath the crop and it's green yet, and as it dries up, it pulls itself together as it's drying down and shrinking, and then it creates like a really tight mat. And as the rain falls on it, the pea leaves are quite big, and the pods and so forth. So as that's all laying in a big swath together, it gets to be really soaking wet like a soppy sponge. If you have the canola in there, canola has massive leaves while it's growing, but as it starts to pod out and fill out, it just ends up spiny, and just pods. The leaves kind of disappear. So when those are mixed with the peas, as they shrink down, they allow the water to go through. Now, that's not the be-all, end-all to it. You still don't want it to get rained on. But we've found in our experience, the peas, they'll take longer to sprout, and the swaths will dry out faster as long as it has canola with it. Another thing, when you swath peas up in the peas country, so the Canada goose, he knows it's time to head south. And as he's coming down from the Arctic, he's got to fly right over our field. And he's hungry, so he gives her one of these. looks straight down and says, yeah, that's a field of peas. I'm going to land in that. What we noticed is the pea stalk is quite a soft fiber, right? I mean, it's a soft plant. It's a mushy plant even when it's dried out. The canola stalk, however, is like a needle sticking straight up out of the ground. Not that they don't land, but they will land in a canola field last, because you know how a bird comes into land, they're going to get that in their belly and on their feet, and they don't like that. So if there's barley crops around or just plain pea crops around, standing peas, swath peas, doesn't matter, they're going to land there first. They will try to land in here. They'll land right on top of the swath. We've seen them do that, and they'll sit on top of the swath. But where some fields will have thousands and thousands of birds on them, if they're just unfortunate to be caught at the wrong time when the birds come over, the pea and canola mix will have less birds than everything else. So those are two more reasons why we do this. And I guess I'll throw a third one in there too. We've noticed when you have flea beetles in your canola, they will not be in the canola pea mix. I don't know why. When the grasshoppers show up, they'll be less in here. Everything is less, and I'm not sure if they're just kind of confused at what's going on here, so they just stay away from it, or if there's something that the pea puts off that the flea beetle doesn't like. I have no idea, but that is certainly things we found in our experience. We've done no science behind that. We just know from our experience. We've been growing peas and canola together for, I don't know, like 10 years, and even before that, but basically 10 consecutive years. And those are things we've noticed for sure.